everyone, and welcome to Post Crisis Chats. I'm your co host, the ever wonderful Cookie, and with me, as always, the ever handsome.
This is Randy here. Nice to see you all. If you're a first time viewer, welcome. Please remember to like the video and please subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you can be notified next week when we upload our next episode regarding Swamp Thing.
It's such a small thing to do, but like it really helps the channel grow. So we would really appreciate it. And if you're not a first time viewer, if you have checked this out before, we appreciate you coming back, and we're thankful to have you here.
Please check out our socials. You can find us on Blue Sky and Patreon. Patrons get access to the Post Crisis Chat Book Club. You can see the links down in the description.
In that, we will tell you a week ahead of time which issues we will be recording the show on, so that it'll give you a chance to, like read along with us, and then you can comment on those issues. And you know what? Some lucky people will also get their comments read on the channel.
And also, please be advised that we will be talking about decades old spoilers. I feel like at this point, if you haven't read it, that's probably your fault. But we did want to let you know that there are going to be spoilers on the issue we're going to be reviewing today and give you a chance. Go back and read the issue before you watch this. Today, we're going to be talking about Saga of the Swamp Thing, issue 32. It is written by Alan Moore. That's a nice cover. Pencils by Shawn
Yes.
McManus. The inks are actually uncredited, but according to the DC Wiki, it's Shawn inking his own work.
Huh. Okay. That kind of makes sense because a lot of times when a penciler inks their own work, sometimes it, like, it. I personally like it, unless you're John Byrne. If you're John Byrne and you ink yourself, then you kind of suck because he's not a good inker on himself.
I, I agree 100%, but I don't want to get too far off topic. One thing I want to say going into this, I read this issue before, and I didn't like it. So I tried to go into this with an open mind since I didn't enjoy it last time. I thought maybe I just wasn't in the right frame of mind last time. So I tried honestly to read it with an open mind.
And I'm kind of curious because I remember we had this discussion before, and you said you didn't like it, and I kind of brought up that I instantly reading it recognized a lot of what he was going for, and we'll get that in this. So I'm kind of curious. The second time around, what did your feelings change a little bit?
We'll get into that. I definitely want to talk about that. In this issue, we've got some
So
aliens. Oh, yeah.
yes.
Did I interrupt
So
you?
so before we get into that, I want to lay the groundwork here for you, so that way you'll kind of understand as we're going through this. So I don't know why Alan Moore wrote this issue the way that he did, but apparently it's like a tribute to a comic strip from back in the day called Pogo, which I'm assuming you're not very familiar with. Pogo, and I got my notes here, so I did some research, so I can kind of break it down for you because I know a
Nice.
little bit, but not a lot. So Pogo was a daily comic strip written and drawn by Walt Kelly, who used to work for Disney back in from 1935 to 1941. And then he later went on to work for a company called Dell Comics, where he would eventually begin work on this strip Pogo. And then the Pogo strip actually debuted in 1948 in October and ran until 1975. And apparently it's got a pretty big following. I mean, like I tried to get into it, but I'm not like big into it. The art gorgeous, but the storylines I wasn't like, that keen on. But it's got a huge following. A lot of professionals love it, and it sounds like this is kind of his homage to that strip.
That is something I did not know at all. That's very interesting. And that is context that I was definitely missing both times that I read this. Do you know what the strip was in general about?
It was basically it followed a few different characters. The main character was Pogo Possum, and it was set in the fictional swamp of, I'm gonna try and pronounce this because it's spelled weird, Okefenokee Swamp, set in Georgia. And then there's like a lot of different characters, like Pogo Possum, Albert Alligator, Howland Owl, a few of them that I'll kind of touch on as we get in because I just like I said, I did some research, and so the references I can kind of give you a little bit of context on. I like I said, I've only read a few of the strips, and I don't
Interesting.
know everything. I had to explore the internet.
No, absolutely. So let's get into it. Some aliens are arriving on a ship named Find the Lady. Through context clues, the lady is they're searching for a new planet to live on, and they're going to call that new planet the lady, or that's how they refer to the new planet. Maybe giving away a little bit of the story ahead of time, but it helps to have that context. We have an alien named Pog, very similar to Pogo, and his front mate of the ship, Bartle, and they are wrestling with another creature called Hystricide, or maybe that's the creature's name and it's not the type of creature it is. That's not really clear to me. They're trying to get this creature into a safety net for landing on the planet they are about to land on, which is DC's Earth, which I'm sure is obvious given that we're talking about a Swamp Thing title where this takes place on DC's Earth. Anyway, as they're doing this, they lament the passing of their friend, Aldenita, who used to handle getting Hystricide into the safety net. She used to be really good at it, but she is no longer with them. Any comments on any of those characters based on your research?
This is what I've discovered. In the very beginning part, when Pog is talking, and they mention his log, and I believe it's like 8491401. I believe is the log number. That's a reference to the debut of Pogo's very first strip back in October 4th of 1948. So
Okay.
Moore is either a huge fan or majorly did some research. So Bartle is an anagram for Albert, who is the alligator from the
Ah,
script.
and he is shaped like an alligator in the book too.
Yes. So it's like they really kind of they didn't they
Oh, the
didn't do much
irony.
on that one.
We'll get to that though.
Now I don't remember if they mentioned this. Been like a second since I read it. I don't remember if they mentioned the name of the ship in the beginning, but basically it is based on a character from Pogo called Churchy LaFemme, who's a mud turtle. So that's why the ship is shaped like a turtle, apparently.
Hmm, interesting. That's actually
There's
a
a
really
lot.
good segue into this next part I have, because then we get a full splash page of the turtle shaped spaceship landing in the swamp. The art here is stellar, especially compared to what I'm used to with Bissett's work.
I really, really enjoyed the artwork on this book. I thought Shawn McManus. I mean, he's a good artist, anyways. Like I've like seen various works of his over the years. He did a lot of Vertigo stuff that I actually read, and he's just got like a really good. And you could tell this is early McManus before he kind of like falls into what his current style is, and it's he does a phenomenal job on it. I wish he would have done more Swamp Thing. Like he would have been the regular artist. I think that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah, it would have. So I feel like this might be a fill in issue to give Bissett a chance to catch up.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. When I was doing the research, they said this was Moore wrote this as a fill-in so that they can kind of catch up on art. They even mentioned that the issue that they had to catch up on, and I forget what the name of the issue was. I should have wrote that down.
One of the cool things about the spaceship is their spaceship is alive. It lands and it comes out and it alerts the crew that it is safe for the crew to come out, which I thought was really cool that the spaceship's alive. I like that concept.
I did too. I actually had a lot of fun with this issue. I mean, like now that I know what all the references actually are, I might have to go back and reread it again and see if I can kind of like that will make me enjoy it even more. But it was fun. I can see where people difficulty with this issue because apparently this is a very you either love it or you hate it. There really is no middle ground on this, and I
Interesting.
can see where people hate it because like the way that he wrote the dialogue is very very difficult to follow.
You're getting ahead of me here, but that's okay. The next bullet point I had that I wanted to discuss is the crew comes out into the swamp and they realize that they have found the promised land. They have found the lady. This is where they want to live. It reminds them of home. And with that, I was going to my next bullet point is I hate the way Moore uses language in a weird way here. I wish he would treat it as translated into normal English instead of making up words and grammar that don't make any sense. The first time I read this, I kind of dismissed the entire issue because it was hard to follow. I was just like, this is not fun to read. I don't like trying to figure out what they're talking about. I don't like this. Again, I tried to have an open mind, but The dialogue from the aliens bugs the crap out of me. It just does.
It's very weird. And I knew reading it you were going to hate it because you complained so much about the demon that I was like, he's not going to like this issue.
Why would you bring up the worst DC character ever created in an issue that doesn't even involve him? I'm kidding. Well,
I'm sorry, I said nothing about the characters from Transmetropolitan. I was talking about the demon.
anyway, so they continue to talk about how the swamp looks and smells like home, where they came from, and that's when we really get a sense of who the lady is. That was their home planet, and the crew decides to go exploring to see what flora and fauna they can find in the area. I found it amusing that they tried to talk to a possum. At least I think that's what was up in the tree. It was kind of hard to tell from the art, but of course they get no response from the possum. I enjoyed how they attribute the lack of communication to the possum just being antisocial.
I think that's one of the things I enjoyed about it, that it was kind of fun. It was like, okay, what if cartoon characters had, come to, the real world and they're going to be completely out of place. It's like, you can't have a cartoon possum talking to a real possum because nothing's going to happen there. And I just thought of this. Here's the thing that I thought was one of the other reasons I enjoyed it is it reminds me of one of my favorite issues of Animal Man by Grant Morrison, where he did the issue of basically what life would be like for Wile E. Coyote in like a real world situation.
I've
And
heard of that issue before. I haven't read it myself.
it's a really good issue. And that's kind of what this reminds me of a little bit, but it's more. So it's like he's gotta do his thing.
Yeah, no doubt. And then Pog literally trips on Swamp Thing's foot, and we get another full splash page where Swamp Thing's face on the page seems kind of poorly drawn. I'm calling that out because most of the art in this issue is stellar. I get what the artist was going for, the shock and surprise on Swamp Thing's face. I just think it was executed poorly.
It was not the best, but like I said, I think this is early Shawn McManus. I'm actually going to flip to that page that you're talking about now. And yeah, see, I think the thing is that McManus kind of has a little bit of a cartoony style to him naturally. And so that's kind of what we were getting was a bit more of a cartoony looking Swamp Thing. It's just,
And I think it works in the
but
rest of
I
the
see what you're
book. I
saying.
think it's just right here is
Yeah,
it was not great. But if you go to the bottom of that page and you look at the aliens, Pog and Bartle, they look great. I mean, that is just the rest of the page is awesome. I just didn't like that face. I get that it was kind of a weird angle he was going for and he did it on purpose. Like I say, I think it's poorly executed. That's one of my few art complaints in this book.
it is kind of one sometimes. Like I haven't really noticed it personally because I don't read enough Swamp Thing comic, but I wonder if it's because what he was trying to do here was put a more human expression on Swamp Thing's face of the shock of like, okay, what are these little aliens? And Swamp Thing's face isn't really designed for emotional like response.
That's
It just
fair.
like
Yeah, I see what you mean. Then Swamp Thing tries to talk to them, and there's a language barrier there. The aliens really don't understand Swamp Thing. And I really like the fact that it's Swamp Thing who's speaking the foreign language in this situation, with his language bubble looking just like weird symbols. And the aliens who we can understand. I thought that was a nice touch.
I did too, especially because it was kind of cool of getting this is from the aliens' perspective. So
Yeah,
like that was
exactly.
kind of yeah, that was kind of a fun little twist.
Then one of the aliens called Strigform. Do you know where that one came from by chance? Strigform?
Yeah, and actually any
Strigiform.
of the ones I miss, I'll drop at the end of this episode. I'll go over all stuff that we skipped over. But Strigform is he's based on Howland the Owl. I understand why he did it, but at the same time, I felt like maybe they could have come up with a somewhat of a different name. But Strigform is literally the scientific name for an owl.
okay. See that I'm so
Yeah.
glad you did the research on this because I am really enjoying finding out about these little touches that I had no idea while I was reading that. So this alien decides to shoot Swamp Thing with what looks like a double-barreled laser gun. Swamp Thing takes the hits and goes down. He's knocked prone onto the ground, and the aliens think Swamp Thing is dead. I don't know. It was
I love the idea of a double barrel laser gun. I mean, that's just in
why only
comics,
have
especially in
one
the
laser
'90s.
when you can have two?
Exactly. But it's like, and the design of it just looking like a old fashioned double barrel shotgun. I mean, like when you see most science fiction comics, especially like if you get into the Rob Liefeld era of comics, everything looks very blocky and like I think someone once described as it looks like bread, basically.
Hmm. I enjoyed the look of it. It's very cool. Upon closer examination, the aliens seem to realize that they have shot a plant, not an animal, and they realize that Swamp Thing might still be alive. Pod tries to talk to Swamp Thing again, and again they have a language barrier. But the alien and Swamp Thing end up shaking hands once they realize that they aren't there to hurt each other in what is apparently a universal gesture of peace towards each other. I thought that was kind of cool.
I liked it. I mean, it was kind of like this whole issue just has like these kind of cute little moments to me. I mean, up until towards the end, that gets a little Alan Moore-ish,
Then Pog mentions that Swamp Thing is made out of the same thing as the lady, so it seems that Pog is coming to the understanding that Swamp Thing is actually a part of the planet himself.
which is kind of interesting that he learns more about Swamp Thing than we have in like we did in like 5 issues. It took like what 5, 6 issues for us to figure out what it was.
Yeah. Then Pog tries to show Swamp Thing where he came from using pictographs on the ground. Pog draws a planet with a ring and two moons. And then he tries to get across the idea that the species who lived on the planet all got along, with the exception of one group of creatures who decided to create an uncivilization. This is one of the few places that I really dug the weird dialogue. I thought uncivilization was a really cool way to put across the idea that they were trying to get across. It worked effectively, and it kind of called it out because the dialogue was so weird. And due to this uncivilization, the planet the aliens were from was destroyed, and they went searching for a new planet to live on.
That's where I wish I could have found out more of like why he wrote this issue the way that he did with these characters. Like, was there something he was trying to say? Like was Pogo supposed to represent like the best of humanity, of like how humanity used to be? Then destruction of the planet is like, oh, that's where we're going. If humans keep acting, it's like I feel like there's something I'm missing, and I'm really curious to find out what it could be because it feels like this is supposed to be like a lecture.
Hmm, interesting. Well, I mean, there is a kind of a heavy-handed message that we'll get to, because Pog seems to show that the Uncivilization group experimented on the other alien species, killed the other alien species, and ate the other alien species, all while ruining the planet that everyone was living on. And so the aliens decided to take one of each species from the planet they were living on and flee their planet. And one thing I found really interesting, Alan Moore maybe being a little bit ahead of his time, or at least a little bit ahead of society's time, is that they made it so that genders don't matter anymore, and any gender could birth a new species by themselves. Thought that was a really cool concept.
I mean, I thought that was kind of interesting because, yeah, like you said, he kind of touched on something that's like a hot button issue in modern times, and he touched on it back in the '80s, and so that's kind of interesting. I mean, I kind of feel like maybe this issue would get a lot more praise today,
You know, you've got a point about that, and maybe this is part of the reason why people call this run one of the greatest comics of all time. More Swamp Thing in general, just part of the greatest comics of all time. Swamp Thing decides to take Pog for a little walk near Baton Rouge and someplace called Richie's Farm. Swamp Thing shows Pog a food stand, presumably on Richie's farm, where hot dogs and hamburgers are being served and eaten by humans. Pog recognizes that the humans are just the same as the creatures from his planet that torture, kill, and eat animals. Insert message here about what we're doing to our planet.
it does feel like it's definitely a message, but it felt like it was kind of like a vegetarian message. which kind of got lost on me because I'm not a vegetarian. I'm just like, yeah, I eat meat.
I'm
Like,
sure if
you
you
know,
were a vegetarian, you would have told us about it in the first episode and every episode since. No offense,
oh
vegetarians.
yeah, because that's what vegetarians do.
Pog is actually very sad that the humans act the same way as the people who destroyed his planet. He maybe realizes at this point this is not paradise.
I like it's what is it, one, two, three. It's like the fourth panel down where it's broken into four panels, which is kind of cool because it almost looks like a comic strip because comic strips are about 3 to 4 panels. But with the
Yeah.
people eating the meat and like the woman shoving the hot dog in her mouth, but then that horrified look on Pog's face. I really like that. It's like it's such a simple like drawing. There's not a lot of detail to it, but it kind of really hits really good.
And then we see that Bartle has been floating in the swamp, telling all of his comrades, come on in, the water is fine. And we see right after that, Bartle is trying to engage with some alligators in the swamps, calling them what I think is supposed to be cousins, distant cousins. He says, let me, well, he says, embrace you, which I think is going to mean embrace you. And yeah, then we see the alligators kind of creeping forward as we see at the same time Pog and Swamp Thing making their way back into the swamp, where Pog continues to despair over the fact that this planet is being destroyed by its inhabitants too. And then we hear a scream.
That I mean, like I knew like almost instantly the moment he went into the swamp and then you saw like the other alligators, I knew what was going to happen, and I was dreading it for those pages. But once it happens, I actually kind of felt a little heartbroken, to be honest.
Sure. And one thing I wanted to point out right before we hear the scream, you mentioned it in a previous episode. Moore has a thing with eyes, right? So we see the eyes of the alligator reflecting Bartle, and it's kind of a theme with him, like you said.
It really is. It's almost like Quentin Tarantino in Feet, but with Alan Moore's eyes.
Yeah, and we see Swamp Thing run to the edge of the water, and we see Bartle is being eaten by two alligators. He is obviously already dead, and it looks like the two alligators are about to tear him in half. That scene was just like you said, it was heartbreaking. It didn't affect me as much the first time around because I don't think I was studying the comic as closely the first time around. And then we see Swamp Thing jump into the swamp and give the alligators a WWF at the time, WWE now, style beatdown as he's retrieving. And after he gets done swinging the alligators around by their tail, he retrieves Bartle's body from the water.
I love that picture of him swinging the alligator by the tail in silhouette. It just it almost looks comical in a way of like the alligators kind of have that like little like flying like that kind of thing, and it's just I don't know. It looks good to me. Just it's kind of it makes me chuckle for some reason.
And you know what? I'm looking at it now, and I realize I made a mistake when I did my notes. I thought Swamp Thing brought Bartle's body back, but I actually see Hog pulling Bartle's body out of the water and crying over it. Which again, that when it got to this scene, it affected me emotionally in a way that it didn't the first time I read this because I was so caught up in the dialogue that I missed maybe some of the importance of the story and the emotional moments in it. And
Oh yeah,
so yeah, I mean, coming back to it, I enjoyed the story more. I still did not like the dialogue, but the story itself hit a lot harder the second time around.
it definitely does. It's I mean, it hit me hard the first time just because I think it was knowing what the references kind of were a little bit. Granted, I only knew the alligator and the possum, but still there was that emotional connection. So watching them die or watching the alligator die was just like, dude, that sucks. And then seeing the emotion on Pog's face was like, man, that's kind of heavy.
I mean, and when you realize that's like the death of his entire species, like he was the last one, and there'll never be another of his particular species again. His species has gone extinct. And seeing the rest of the crew members realize that, and seeing Histricide crying, literally crying, crouched over the body of Bartle. I it affected me a lot more emotionally this time around. It really did.
That's good though. I mean, that's good that that shows that you are human and you have emotions when it comes to these characters.
Yeah, and we just met him in this issue. I mean, it's not like I was particularly connected to them before. Yeah, I
No,
mean,
and that's a sign of a good writer. If he can make you care about characters that you I'm going to assume we will never ever see these characters again in the history of the DC universe. That this is it for them. That's one and done.
right.
So, but yet still to make you kind of care, that's power. That's a good writer.
Yeah, it definitely is. At that point, the spaceship actually starts singing a funeral dirge for Bartle as it cries. Swamp Thing stands nearby looking sad. And it's kind of interesting because the aliens don't think Swamp Thing really understands what's going on, which is in itself kind of sad because the aliens came looking for camaraderie and they were unable to find it. Even though the aliens and Swamp Thing seem to have some limited communication, because Swamp Thing's a part of the planet, I think they think he doesn't understand.
Yeah, it felt like there was that like lack of communication, but it's like you could tell Swamp Thing does understand because you could tell like the look on his face and it kind of hits him a little bit as to what's happening. But I don't know. Just there was something about like this whole the end of this book was just really sad and depressing.
It really was. And I'm looking at this panel at the end, and I don't think I realized quite how big their spaceship was because I think when I read this recently, I didn't catch that Swamp Thing standing near the front of it. That ship is really big.
Yeah, in the beginning when you're looking at it, like I thought it was just like a regular sized turtle
As
or
did I.
something. But yeah, it's like now you're looking at it, that's freaking Gamera right there.
Then Find the Lady launches off the planet Earth, and they continue their search for a new home. I originally gave this issue 3 out of 5 turtle-shaped vessels. But I'm going to increase that to 3.5 out of 5 turtle shaped vessels due to the background that you gave me on the characters, because I think that does make it look more interesting. I thought that with the one exception I mentioned, I thought art was stellar throughout the whole thing. The story was top notch. I thought the dialogue of the aliens was unnecessarily complicated, so that's really the only reason I'm rating it as low as I am. I think without that dialogue, it would have been a full like 4.5, 4.75 out of 5, but that dialogue just I it threw me off and I didn't like it even though the story itself was amazing.
I'm gonna give it 4 turtle spaceships out of 5 because knowing what I did know, and then after doing the research and learning even more, it got better. The dialogue, it didn't bother me like all that much. It took a second to kind of catch up on it, but I don't know. Like I don't hate the dialogue to the point where it ruined the story for me. I was able to kind of make it work. It was kind of interesting too, like the way that they talked, just because trying to figure out like what do certain things mean and stuff like that. It was interesting.
You know what? I'm thinking about it, and I'm almost wondering if maybe Alan Moore did that on purpose because he wanted people to not stop, but slow down and think more about the story and maybe concentrate on the story a little more than you would normally just reading a comic book and just reading, breezing through the dialogue. You have to take a moment to really understand what's going on. Wow. Okay. Hmm. I get the dialogue now. I get it now. I still don't like it, but I get it. And I put in my notes that maybe this is just another case of Alan Moore writing above my head, which I'm fine with that. I get that sometimes I don't get Alan Moore, but I think right in this moment talking about it, I think I get Alan Moore on this issue at least.
I could see that. I didn't even think of that at the time, to be honest. I really didn't. I thought it was just Alan Moore being Alan Moore and just writing weird because he tends to write weird, but he's always able to pull it off for some reason. He's one of the few writers that can go weird, but yet still make it make sense, which
Yeah,
is kind of
yeah.
interesting.
I think that's going to
Uh,
be our show tonight.
oh, before we go, do you want me to throw in a couple of the extra little tidbits?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I forgot about that. Yes, please tell us. I'm curious.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned earlier that Histicide character. So he is Porcupine. Literally, Porky Pine was the character from Pogo. And then, of course, Hystricide is a scientific name for a old world porcupine.
Ah, that explains all
There you
the
go.
things coming out of his spacesuit.
Yes. And we went over Strig form. The three little, I guess they call them junior umbrella holders in the beginning, I think somewhere in the book. But at the end, when you see like the little funeral, there's the three little mini
The blue ones.
characters. Yes, those are supposed to be three different bats in the series. I believe Bewit, Bothered, and Bewildered or something like that. I seem to have lost the last name on here. But that they're like three. They called them Beatnik Bat in the Pogo series. Yeah, and it actually kind of made me want to go back and check it out now because I'm like Beatnik Bats sounds awesome.
I,
The
I
dead character.
I'm almost surprised when they didn't name one of them Maynard.
Oh, that'd been cool.
I'm pulling
Oh,
Midnight references out of my butt.
that's just dated us now. Everyone knows how old we are. So the dead character, it's not. They don't say for sure, but the common speculation is. I got this off of TV tropes. Is that it's a character named Ms. Beaver because I guess the name is Aplodontia? Aplodontia, I think. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not. But apparently it's a scientific name for a genus of North American mountain beaver.
Interesting.
So that's why they're kind of
Well,
making
I
that
mean, he
connection.
definitely had a theme going with it.
He definitely did. And so the last little things I want to brought up that I thought was kind of interesting, he makes references not just to the characters, but to things that happen in the Pogo strip, like the reveal that human beings are the planet's equivalent to the loneliest animals of all. That is an implied reference from a Pogo quote from a commissioned poster for Earth Day back in 1970, where the quote was, "We have met the enemy and he is up."
Wow,
So it's like Moore's just pulling crap out, man.
he really
You got
is.
even more. You got in the beginning where they talk about the Tadline in proto puddle jar. I kind of vaguely remember that in the beginning. There was like a jar or something, but that was a reference to a 1948 Pogo strip where Albert accidentally swallows a tadpole in a glass of water.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on. There's a couple more things, but they're kind of like, I mean, there's like a
Can
reference
you
to
give me a
Othello.
link to these references? Like, is there a page where you found them? I can put it in the description below.
Oh yeah, I got most of this I got off of TV tropes.
Okay.
I'll send you the link and you pop it up. But the last thing I do want to bring up, and this is very important, only because how many people are divided on whether they like it or not. This issue was nominated for Best Single Issue in 1985 for the Jack Kirby Award.
I can see why it would be nominated. I can see why it didn't win.
Yeah, you know what won?
It did win.
No, 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 no. I said, do you know what book won? Can you take a wild stab in the dark at what issue, what comic book won the bet?
No
The
idea.
Swamp Thing annual we just covered.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, that was a good issue, but I think this one was better. What
I
did I
just thought it
rate the
was
Swamp
funny that
Thing
it's like
annual? Yeah, I gave the Swamp
you
Thing
did raise it.
annual 3 out of 5, and I ended up improving this one to 3.5 out of 5. So yeah, I think this was a better issue.
I'm torn. I like them both the same, to be honest. They're both really good issues to me. But yeah, I'll drop the link for you so that you can pop it down at the bottom and stuff. But there's a lot of interesting stuff behind this issue.
Cool. Well, if you stuck with us this long into the episode, thank you for that. I mean, it's full of really, really interesting and yet useless trivia. But you know what? The interesting trivia is why we enjoy comics. Say hi to your cat for me.
I just heard her knock something down.
She was on the TV
Yep, she just
stand.
knocked something down. She's in trouble. So that's the show. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Especially want to thank everyone for putting up with me drawing all kinds of useless trivia because there was a lot.
But it
So
was
we were
interesting.
glad
It
that
was all interesting.
yes. Well, I hope the viewers think it was interesting and I wasn't just rambling. We are glad that you guys are here with us watching. We could not do this without you. We appreciate all the viewership. We do this for the love of the comics medium.
Absolutely. But we also want to get paid if you can. And if you're interested in this kind of content and you want to help us keep it growing, please join us on our Patreon. We do have that post crisis chat book club for our members. We let our patrons get their say on the book, and we'll read some of those comments on the channel when we record if people let us know what they think of the book.
Yes. Don't forget to check out the description and the links down below for our Amazon affiliate page. You can pick up the book that we are reading tonight in various formats. You just click on the Amazon affiliate link to make the purchase. A little bit of that purchase comes to the channel. And the good thing is that's not going to cost you any extra money. So you pay the book the normal way, but we get a little bit of the kickback.
Chiquito. You can also follow us on Blue Sky. The link is in the description, and we'll be announcing there when we post new episodes. Also, if you could like this video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what we're doing, and comment on the video as soon as you see it, especially if you're watching it on the first day we release it. Those things actually really help support the channel and help us grow, especially those comments on that first day. They help the YouTube algorithm realize that people like this content and they want to see it, and it will then show it to more people.
Exactly. We got to pimp ourselves as much as possible. So, hit that stuff, do that stuff for us. And then lastly, we got to give a big shout out to our editor, the Nacho King. Without him,
Yeah, we couldn't do this without you, buddy. Thank you so much for what you do. I know that we screw up a lot and we say and too much, and you got to cut that out. We appreciate you for it. Thank you so much. So we
yes,
still
yes,
don't have a
thank you
sign
for
off
making
phrase.
yeah, I'm drawing a blank. So, I mean, I keep hoping maybe we could do like a contest and have people give us one, but you know,
You know what? I'm going to offer one with zero context. This is my friend DM Bob. He is a professional game master. He runs Dungeons and Dragons online. You can just type in DM Bob Yo, and I'm sure his link will come up on Start Playing if you want to play some D&D with him. He's super awesome. But he had these mugs made with his name and his catchphrase. Archers, focus fire on the anus. Without context, that will be our sign off for the night. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.